Yo, what's cracking everyone? Ericship 111 here. So, as we know for Forza Horizon 5's Update 23, we got yet another Horizon story known as Icons of Speed. Now, for those who haven't played this story as of yet, basically it's 8 chapters of you driving really fast cars from their respective eras, starting from the Napier Railton to a fully souped up Toyota Supra, all the way to the Hennessy Venom F5. Now, in terms of the driving aspect of the Icons of Speed story, there's nothing relatively new that has been introduced. All of the chapters revolves around getting from point A to point B with some extra objectives that you need to achieve. But if you listen to the dialogue very carefully, there's actually a mini story to this. So basically, Alejandro, the head mechanic of the Horizon workshop, runs these monthly races to give her apprentices a chance to showcase their work and skills. However, just this month, Alejandro got beaten by one of her own apprentices called Aurelio in a drag race, resulting in her feeling absolutely livid. Now, throughout the story, Alejandro mentions other apprentices from a Horizon workshop like Katie, Hina, Matteo to understand the definition or meaning of speed in cars, but the one thing she ultimately wants is a rematch with Aurelio, which she actually does set up just prior to the Hennessy Venom F5 chapter. But upon actually doing that specific chapter, Alejandro says that Aurelio's happy to race at any time, he's excited about the rematch and doesn't care who wins or loses, he's just happy to race, which then led to Alejandro feeling conflicted about the entire situation. Was she wrong about wanting revenge on Aurelio? This then leads you into the final chapter with the Rimac Nevera, where you race against all of the cars you have driven in the Icons of Speed story against all of Alejandro's apprentices, except for one, and yes, you guessed it, Aurelio's not there. Now, at the end of the story, Alejandro mentions that she can't wait for next month's races and that Aurelio and the others have already started tuning up their cars, which I have to admit was such an anticlimactic ending to the story. This could have been quite a compelling mini story about Alejandro getting her revenge on her apprentice Aurelio in a drag race, but instead it ended up with everyone being happy and essentially forgetting about why we were even there in the first place. It was such a Horizon feel-good ending, which was a little bit disappointing. However, it was left open-ended. Now, the reason why I mentioned this Icons of Speed story is because a while back in February, a data miner over at GT Planet known as TGR55 discovered some hidden folders about an upcoming leaked drag story known as HAD. And according to the leak, this story revolves around Alejandro and Papa Fernando's 1968 Dodge Dart Hemi Superstock. Now, here's the interesting part upon reading the actual leaked text dialogue. There's actually a lot of similarities between the leak which was found back in February to the one we got in Series 23 with the Icons of Speed. There's the Napier Railton, where you do indeed drive on a beach, the Ford Deluxe Coupe, the Toyota Supra RZ, Rimac Nevera. The only difference is that a couple of chapters have been changed and the story doesn't revolve around Alejandro's apprentices and Aurelio, but instead Papa Fernando and the 1968 Dodge Dart Hemi. However, those couple of changes certainly impacted the direct outcome in comparison to what we actually got. You see, in the beginning of the leak story, instead of meeting up with Alejandro and her talking about her loss to her apprentice in a drag race, you instead are asked what is the truest form of racing, and then you are greeted with Papa Fernando's old muscled up 1968 Dodge Dart, and then Alejandro says she's setting up a brand new event to the festival called the Drag Race. Apparently, she has been scouting out many different locations for these new drag race events and is now ready to go, and this is where we were supposed to be introduced the new and improved form of drag racing, where you drive into a marked out zone and drag lights will appear. You must come to a complete stop and be as close as you can to the front of the box, and once you are stationary for 3 seconds, the drag lights will count down. If you miss the green lights, that's not a problem, the lights will cycle again. Then there's more dialogue about how you must get the most out of each gear, but ultimately this chapter is an introduction to the brand new drag racing style in Horizon 5. Now in the final chapter, you drive Papa Fernando's Dodge Dart and take on a Lamborghini Huracan STO, and more importantly, the Camaro Pro Stock. Now it doesn't mention whether these drag battles will be a full-on drag race or a straight line sprint, but regardless, the story ends quite differently, with new drag racing locations being unlocked, along with drag racing in Horizon 5 being completely overhauled. Now, just seeing what the plans were compared to what we actually got 6 months later seems like such a huge nerf, and with the Icons of Speed story, Playground Games could have indeed still implemented the new drag racing system, where perhaps in the final chapter, when we get to avenge Alejandro's loss to Aurelio, to me that would have made more sense, especially with the change in direction the developers went with. And here's what's even more interesting. Currently within the hidden folders of Horizon 5, again, TGR55 from GT Planet discovered that the new files for the Icons of Speed were named as HAD, which is of course the same name as the leaked drag story back from February. HAD stood for History's a Drag, and an extra dialogue in the text files were found suggesting that there will now be drag zone PR stunts, which basically works the same as how the leaked drag racing story was showcased, but just in the form of a PR stunt. Now this could be even more interesting, as perhaps players out in free roam can now just trigger the marked box, and perhaps players that you are sharing the Horizon world with can all join in without actually having to load up a drag race in a convoy. Can you imagine just lining up to a PR drag racing zone and another player just joins beside you seamlessly, and once you set off, the next pair of cars drive up to the marked box for their drag race and off they go? Honestly, I think this is an even better way of going about drag racing in Horizon 5, but of course, none of this is in the game as of right now. Now, if I had to guess what had happened, the Icons of Speed was still meant to introduce the new drag racing system despite the complete change in storyline, as from the beginning it does mention drag racing along with a rematch with Aurelio right before the Hennessy Venom F5 chapter, and for whatever reason it didn't happen. Maybe it was at this very moment where the guys over at Playground Games went, wouldn't it be better to bring drag racing as a PR stunt instead of an actual race where players have to load into? And rather than rewriting the entire story again, the developers scrambled for a very lackluster and open-ended final 2 chapters, which does of course leave them an opportunity to introduce Icons of Speed Volume 2, where we might finally get a chance to actually race against Aurelio in a drag race or take on a series of different challenges, as remember, the ending does suggest something more, but just not very specific. Now, judging by the latest leaks as well, I do believe the PR drag racing stunt will now most likely happen, whether it's for Series 24, which I kinda doubt, since the focus for that specific series is all about the 4 returning manufacturers of Alfa Romeo, Lancia, Fiat and Abarth, but perhaps for Series 25 or even Series 26. Ultimately, at some point, drag racing changes will happen to Horizon 5, and it's only a matter of time. But anyways, what do you guys think about the drag racing changes? Would you have loved to have seen it introduced throughout the Horizon story? Or are you excited about it being a PR stunt style? Share us your thoughts down in the comment section below, as I do read all of your comments, guys. But anyways, if you guys did find today's video helpful or interesting, please make sure to smash the thumbs up button, as it really does help me out. And of course, if you guys would like to stay up to date with everything Forza Horizon 5 related, be sure to subscribe, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Peace.